Welcome to Stuck, Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. One real good way to ensure that is to have a mentor. And I am so excited to have Rod Bourn, the founder and author of Downset Lead. Thank you so much for coming, Rod.
Absolutely, Mary. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What is a mentor? And why is it important?
A mentor is someone special in your life that wants you to succeed, has the experience that someone like your parent might, but doesn't have the necessarily the punishing capacity like a parent does. Mentor actually is the name of the person that Odysseus's father left in charge of Odysseus when he left. So that's where the word comes from. And this, again, kind of like an aunt or an uncle, someone who, loves you kind of like a child, but, isn't going to necessarily break out all of the mean things that a parent might or whatever. And obviously that's kind of transformed into what it was in that story as to what they are to us today.
Okay, so why is it important for a startup in particular to have someone like that on their team?
You don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. And if you have someone who has been there, done that, can kind of, again, in a caring way, tell you, you don't necessarily want to pick that up, you want to pick that up, and this is what you want to do with it, and those kinds of things. There are so many balls in the air when you're trying to start a business, run a successful startup, be a successful entrepreneur, that anything that you can do to keep yourself from having to waste time, anyone that can teach you a fast lesson as opposed to you having to gruel through it yourself, that's a bonus to have on your side.
And are there mentors for different aspects of a business, or do you
Absolutely. So yeah, it's hard to find someone who can be a mentor for all aspects of what you need. You're better off saying, okay, on a scale of 1 to 100, how good am I at marketing? How good am I at producing? How good am I at leading? How, whatever it is that you do. If you're at a 60 on that scale of 1 to, you're not necessarily want to find someone who's a 90 or 100, because you're going to have a hard time even conceptualizing what it is, a person that far down the road. But you want to find someone that's 10, 12, maybe 15 spots ahead of you in your mind. Someone that you understand, you can appreciate what they're doing, and you want to be doing what they're doing at their level. And so having that person come in and using that relationship to your benefit is something that's going to help you, again, not have to reinvent the wheel as you're doing these various things, starting up your business.
Right. And as long as they understand you and a little bit about your business, they don't necessarily have to have experience in that business or that industry.
Correct.
Although it helps. Right?
Yeah, it certainly does help. And this is really what it boils down to, is finding someone who understands what that part of business is about, and just saying, Mary, I love the way that you do blank, whatever it is. Can we get together and have a cup of coffee for half an hour, and I can just kind of pick your brain about that? And what is the one thing that people love to talk about the most? Themselves, right? And so Mary's like, oh, Rod, yes, I'm flattered. I would, certainly you can buy me a cup of coffee. We'll go to don't go to Starbucks, go to the local place, so the mom and dad shop. Okay, go down there and pick Mary's brain for 30, 35, 45 minutes, so she'll let you get away with it, right? And then you go back and you're like, you put everything that Mary just kind of explained to you, start putting that, and a week or two later, you've improved because you're making those changes that Mary told you to do. And then you call Mary back up, like, Mary, you're right, this is really working well. I'd love to have another cup of coffee with you in a week or two. And Mary's like, oh, okay, sure, no problem. Happy to help. And then you have that second cup of coffee with Mary like 2 weeks later. And again, you pick her brain, 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it is. And you apply that and boom. All right. All of a sudden, you've got all this great stuff that Mary has told you, probably for free. And Mary's doing it because she's a good person, but you need to be a good person back. So if there's any way that you can help Mary, it may be that you are savvy in some area that Mary is not. It may be that Mary is looking for introductions, people that those people. Hey, feel free, Mary, to look through my LinkedIn, and if there's someone you want an introduction to, I'll be more than happy to do that for you. That's the payback. And you do that for every segment of your business, where you find these people who they aren't threatened by you, asking questions and everything else. And that's how you create an informal mentor for yourself. Okay. And once you've gotten pretty much everything that you can from Mary, maybe you've moved up from 60 to 67, or somewhere in the higher 60s. Then you can look, a few spots above that and say, okay, well, who else besides Mary do I know who's doing something that I can grasp and I can appreciate what it is, and I can learn from them. And you ask them out for coffee for 20, 30, 40 minutes. You pick their brain.
That's a great process. That's a great description of the process. Just how does one go about finding a mentor?
It's a really good question. So a lot of it is networking and finding people and birds of a feather. I mean, we all fly together, right? The place that I really recommend people to go to are professional associations. It might be a chamber of commerce. It might be a segment of a chamber of commerce. It might be a chapter of a professional association that's in your area, and go to a meeting. Typically, you can go to the first, if not the first few meetings for free. And they'll be like, oh, Rod, hey, welcome. It's good to have you here on board. Boom, boom, boom. They're probably going to introduce you to people. And that's how you can begin to get in the flow and like, oh, wow, this is really great. And
some places like St. Louis has an actual mentoring partnership. It's an organization that puts mentors and mentees together. And sometimes there's an organization called SCORE. That's also a good place to find mentors, as far as I know. And sometimes the university programs, any university that has an incubator or accelerators that have programs, often have a mentor component to it. So those are all good places to look for mentors.
I 100% agree. SCORE, SBD, Small Business Administration, SBDC, any of those quasi-government organizations that have been built by maybe the Department of Economic Development in your area. That's another great place to reach out.
And another thing I always think of is a way you can tell that someone is a good mentor or potentially a good mentor is that when you first meet, they ask you a lot more questions than you ask them.
Yeah.
They don't just tell you who they are and what they do and talk about themselves. They ask you lots of questions.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective anyway, you don't need to know all that I can do. You just need to know what I can do for you.
Right. And that's where the mentor, like you said, needs to ask, what is it that you're struggling with right now? And let's work on that little piece. And once you've nailed that down, then we can talk about what's next for you.
Okay, well, this has been great, Rod Bourn from Downset Lead. Do you have any parting thoughts?
I would just welcome anyone who wants to have the discussion a little bit more. Reach out to me. LinkedIn is the best way to get to me. And mentors are a very economical way to not just figure out how to solve a problem, but to build your network.
Sure. And a mentor isn't necessarily older than you. They just have a different skill set and are further along that way.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, this has been great. Thank you very much, Rod Bourn from Downset Lead. I'm Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. So book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com and join us again for Stuck, Time to Improv.